Hi, and welcome to good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the first ever Corporate Jet Investor Town Hall. We're trying to go live across the world with as many people from the business aviation community. This is the pilot issue. Actually, it's not the pilot issue. In a while, we will do one just about pilots. But this is the first time we've tried this, so please bear with us. If you'd like to speak, many of you are already using the chat session. If you want to ask a question, it's great. 5 people have already done this. The best way to ask a question is in the Ask a Question section. And there's also a poll. I think a lot of people would like to know the 2 people who are really optimistic at the moment. So let's get started. There's 2 rules. We want to involve as many people as possible. And secondly, we will not last beyond an hour. And I'm delighted to have our first speaker, David Dixon, speaking to us under house arrest from Hong Kong. He's not the first member of the Asian business aviation community to be tagged and kept in kept in their house. So David Dixon, president of Jetcraft Asia, can you describe your current situation to us?
Basically confined to barracks. I got a tag here, which has a Q code, which is linked to a phone with an app, which links me to the government. And if I move outside the 4 walls of my apartment, they come looking for me. So it's a sign of what future control could be like if you do bad things. I know of some people who did go outside and they were picked up very quickly. So be warned.
And we should make it clear, this is only because you were in Australia a week ago.
It's because I came back 2-3 days after the restrictions were imposed. If I'd got in 48 hours earlier, I would be a free man.
Okay, so David, you're at home. You've got a lot of time on your hands. What are your customers saying?
I think everyone's in pause mode. People don't know where we're going. They're as concerned or as worried about their children or what their family as you or I or anyone else here would be, distracted by the sheer gravity and the extent of what's going on.
Do you when you say pause, do you actually think the market's paused, or are deals dead?
I don't want to use the word dead because no, it isn't. But it's for example, even if in my business trading of an airplane, we may not be able to go and see it. We may not be able to move it because of getting a crew there. The crew become constrained by the needs for quarantine. So there's all sorts of issues. You can't get to a simulator because the simulators courses are closed down and things like this. There's all sorts of dynamics which are slowing a lot up. We did actually close a deal today, but obviously that was on its way before the real heavy hiatus. But it does suggest that it's going to be more and more difficult. The longer this goes on, we're all going to find it more difficult.
So Hong Kong's been locked down pretty much since early January. How are the people taking that? Many of us are in, I think, week 2 now of the lockdown in parts of Europe, longer if you're in Italy, obviously. What's the mood amongst your fellow expatriates and the locals?
Well, I have to say there's quite a difference between lockdown Hong Kong and lockdown and what we're seeing in parts of Europe, where the pictures, for example, in London, Trafalgar Square, nobody there other than the reporters. Pictures of Italy, Rome, nobody on the streets. If I look outside the door here, I'm not allowed to, outside the window, there's traffic, there's people going about their business. But the big difference is everyone seems to wear a mask here. You are a very small minority. The mask is the sinister side, the visual side that makes you realize there's something odd. Things are not real, or not right. They're very real. Sorry, they're not normal. That's what I really meant. But the general mood is one of concern. People are being laid off. People are being told that you can't gather in more than a group of 2. You can't. There was an attempt even to close bars by saying no alcohol. So some of they've done that in Thailand now. So the whole area is struggling, very quiet. Restaurants, bars, hotels, everything. It's Hong Kong had its problems last year based on the street issues and the protests, but this on top of it is certainly a very heavy double blow.
We've got a question for the audience. You were at an OEM for a long time. Are there any words from OEMs regarding cancellations or deferrals? This is a question from Bob Suskin in New York.
Too early for that. But I mean, for example, I know Bombardier have already announced a cessation of production for a while. Cessation is the wrong word. Stopping the production for a period of time. That will delay deliveries. That'll push things back. That has an influence on cash flow. I'm sure that's going to be increasing the same for the other OEMs. I can't believe that Dassault are not suffering in some way. They're right in the thick of it there in Europe. I don't know so much about Savannah, but during the SARS epidemic, which was predominantly an Asian problem, there weren't cancellations at that time. But there were cancellations in 2008, and there were cancellations in 1997. The 1997 was currency, and that hit some places badly. For example, in Australia, you've got a roughly 20% depreciation of the Aussie dollar versus the US dollar at this point. Indonesia suffered a big depreciation. So there might be areas where somebody decides he doesn't want to pay 20% more for an airplane. So that's still to come. The economic fallout of this whole sad affair has yet to really be felt. My guess is there will be cancellations because people are financially wounded. Can they morally say they can go and spend the money on an airplane when they're making people redundant or making them take half salaries, things like that? So there's a whole number of factors that could change the dynamic for the OEM.
You were in the region selling aircraft during SARS. Does this feel like SARS to you, or does it feel more like the global financial crisis in terms of business?
It feels like the currency crisis. It feels like 2002, which was SARS, and 2008, which was financial. It's three heavy body blows. I would imagine it's sort of being a bit like Mike Tyson in the ring and getting three head blows to the head from him. It's going to hurt, no question. And the depth, that's the problem. What I think is we don't know what we don't know on this situation. There's no Harvard, excuse me, I'm all right, I haven't got a cough. And there's no Harvard Business School that's taught anybody for this. I think it doesn't matter which leader you listen to or trust or whatever, there is no basis for anyone to be able to say they truly know where this is taking us.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks so much, David. We're going to let you go back to isolation. Although you're obviously very welcome to keep watching.
I will continue, sir.
Issues we've been talking to about a lot is flight operations. Like Sharafeddin, Vice President of UN Trip Support. Abdul, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can't see you. You've chosen to hide. I'm guessing you're in your pajamas.
Your guess is right.
In trip planning, it must have been a nightmare for you the last few weeks.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, it's been a lot of challenges for a lot of countries, and we've been struggling with almost all airports and civil aviation. Mostly the airports are closed, locked down for most part. The only flights right now they can operate through diplomatic channels. So anyone is operating through the government, they get a green light. Otherwise, there's a lot of challenges. There's no technical landing. There's no entry. A lot of crew are suffering because they need a night stop, and sometimes this is not feasible in the destination or where they are intended to operate. Yes, I mean, overall, there's a lot of challenges, but a lot of operators and everybody understand the situation, and I hope things were better. And I think what we had led to this, mean, in general, no one really prepared or no one had estimated the magnitude of this crisis. And now they're trying the last minute to make things the right, which is it's working somehow, but the process is very slow. Also, there's a lot of uncertainty about information. We didn't see that the coordination between all the stakeholders, whether the government or the airport or the ground handler or civil aviation. So there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of misinformation how to act about it. For the past few days, things start getting much better. There's a lot of information and there's some coordination, and I think we're going to start seeing better communication and better coordination from all over the stakeholders.
Can you give us any good news? Are there any markets opening up?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
We're hearing news about China opening up.
That's correct. Yes, Asia and in particular China, it's opening up. I guess that's due to the situation that China has recovered much faster than anyone else, and all the world now they relies heavily on China, especially for the medical aids, goods, and things like that. So the whole world, they are counting on China to support them, and China has not closed its doors since the recovery and welcoming a lot of flights. And so this is something it's been going on, I would say, since for the past 2 weeks or so.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Abdul. We really appreciate it, and keep safe in Dubai. Now I'm delighted let's try and go to Europe now. I'm going to invite Robert Baltus on screen. Robert's the Chief Operating Officer of the European Business Aviation Association, EBAA. Seeing if he's joining us. Doesn't seem to be working at the moment. Robert, if you can try and click on. Just going through some of the poll questions. Yes, I am wearing trousers. Delighted. Now here we have Robert over to, sorry, Robert, I lost you. I'm coming back on to you now. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Al. And let me start by thanking you and Luis and the whole team for setting this up. I think it's a very good way to speak to one another in the wider perspective. So let's start with that.
I like your posters on the wall as well.
Yeah, I've took them away from the UK because they didn't use them there, apparently.
No, they were used during the Second World War, but they were printed in case we were invaded. So what message are you getting from European operators?
Well, our team has been connecting with our members throughout these unprecedented times, and the number of flights are down dramatically. I think Eurocontrol threw around figures of 50%, but I saw WingX is also listening in now. They have more detailed figures on that. But our first priority was helping our members to ensure they receive the right information. On the national level, the operator is generally well aware of what's happening from a rule and regulation side, as well from a local support side. So let's say financial support for staff. And the main ask from a lot of our members was for information of what's happening in the rest of the world, and primarily in Europe. So the EBA created a specific webpage, and I invite everybody to go and have a look. It's just on the website, and we call it the COVID-19 Resource Center. In that, we're trying to present as much of the available data and links that we can get hold of and that are of use to our members. So that was the first thing we did. Besides that, we're getting a lot of feedback and questions on validity of licenses in different states, certificates of airworthiness, which are becoming a problem because, as previously said, it's difficult to move aircraft, staff, etc., etc. But we'll also get like bizarre things on our way. Some countries are closed for fuel stops, and these are fuel stops for ambulance flights. So they were refused to make, they refused permission to make fuel stops. So we're trying to collect as many of those, both through our members, but also engaging a lot with the national associations throughout Europe, with IBAC and other associations, and get as much information and make it hopefully as easily available to everybody. Because let's face it, if we can't even have the flights that are currently flying, which are mainly ambulance and repatriation flights, that is crucial. Even with the limited amount of flights we can do and which are crucial, we want to make sure that they can continue to fly.
Do you we've seen the US CARE Act, the bailout, which actually could help Part 135 operators. Do you think business aviation in Europe, I know it's a country by country thing, do you think that could get any handouts?
No, I think you're right, already pointed out rightly. The US has a big advantage. It's one country, and it's one bailout. In Europe, there's two levels we can look at. One is on the local level, and those are more things like on unemployment and support at the local airport, etc. So, but that's very specific. We look more on the European level, and it will take more time to get that sorted, but that's something the EBA is pushing for. And if there's no bailout, then we push at least for other measures to lower the financial burden. So that is very important. The likelihood and the timetable is not clear at this stage, but we've seen the European Commission and the Parliament moving at an extremely flexible and fast rate, specifically by their standards, which is very good. But the one thing we need to remember, once there is EU funding, it will still be managed by the national authorities, and that's the case for everything. And so far, we have not seen any specific support for aviation, but aviation will be part of the bigger picture of support for other companies.
Okay, I've got a tough question from Neil Patton. Even today, the alphabet soup entities of aviation don't seem to have coordinated the airspace and airports. Even now, there is no single quality, up-to-date source of exactly what can be done. Yep. NBAA, EBAA, or ICAO, or IATA, or EASA. We need a straightforward emergency plan from the organisations like they insist all operators have. How can we achieve this?
It's a very tough one. For the last 15, 20 years, EBA and the other associations have been working really hard on pushing for a single European sky. There's a reason why we want it. It's efficient, it's better for the environment, and things like that. But it's not there. It's a very political thing. What you see now today is that the fragmented system we have in time of crisis, and then the national involvement, which is also taking place as part of it, is really hurting an efficient way of coordination. So I think it's both a nationalistic tendency, which is explainable up to a certain extent, but that combined with a fragmented system, it's really tough. And that is why we're trying to push all our efforts. And I think EASA is doing a really good job. We've been really pleased with how they're trying to engage, but also to try to standardize the response, to standardize if you fly somewhere, because there's nothing standard at the moment in how countries approach COVID, let alone aviation.
Are you missing Brexit?
Yeah, it's so we had the B from Brexit, C from COVID. It's going to be a tough year.
Okay. Finally, another question, which I think I'm going to give to you because it's your job. Do you know anything about immunity passports?
No. That's the straight answer. I need to get back on that.
No, and I think I admire you for being so honest. Okay, if anyone else would like to talk about immunity passports, please come up. Robert, what's your personal view? How long do you think this is going to last for?
I think the difficulty. Let's do a step back. I think we went through a crisis management phase whereby the industry is now closing down. Now we need to prepare to be ready. So when the industry restarts, when that is, that's going to be, I mean, that's the $20 billion trillion question. It is extremely difficult to predict that. I'm not in that business. What we can do, and that's what our team is doing, is now reaching out and making sure that when the industry starts again, that our members can get their licenses sorted, making sure that we can properly travel with the crew and have the aircraft maintained and get the certificates of worthiness sorted, etc. So we are now actually together with a project team of EASA working on exactly that. Be ready, but when and for what moment? My prediction is probably as good as yours, Al.
And I would, we had a quarterly magazine about 2 months ago predicting the Roaring '20s, so I wouldn't trust me at all. Thanks, Robert. We really appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's we've been to Dubai, we've been to Hong Kong, Amsterdam. Let's try and get. Let's go to America. We're delighted to have Renee Bangelsdorf, founder of Charlie Bravo. How are things in Austin, Texas?
Al, it's crazy because it feels like a normal day. It's beautiful outside. The bluebonnets are blooming. The sun rose this morning, but we're all in home offices here pretty much across the country now. Texas, where I am, was on a stay-at-home 9 days ago, but the governor declared that for the rest of the state. So it's a new normal, and every single business here, whether people are crazy busy because they're providing emergency services or they're wondering what's happening next.
And, in the aircraft sales market, David in Hong Kong described the market as paused. What word would you go for?
I would also say paused. Al, we've had a lot of clients say, you know what, we had a big project on full throttle ahead, and those have been paused. We've had a couple, 2 or 3 that have canceled. One, the guy had to close 24 of his hotels. So obviously decided not to purchase an aircraft at this time. And we've got a few people who are saying, you know what, I want to see where this lands because maybe I can get a plane for $1 million or $1.5 million less with a distressed seller. And we're already starting to see some of those signs, but they're not saying, oh, that's a distressed sale, let's do it. They're saying, oh, let's wait a month or 2 and see if it gets more distressed. So lots of pausing, but not completely dead. We signed a new acquisition agreement last week and are moving forward just at a much slower pace than we anticipated for this quarter.
Is it still possible to close deals at the moment? Can you get a pre-purchase inspection? Can you get pilots over?
In the US, we still can. We have an aircraft that's finishing up some work in Long Island. And even though that's in the epicenter of New York, there's still activity going on there because aircraft service centers, and like Brad and I both mentioned earlier in the chat, pilot training is still going on. Those things are considered essential services here in the States, but we're hearing about smaller staffing situations because of social distancing and extra cleaning and whatnot in the service centers. So we're not at a standstill on that yet. It's slow. There are some areas like here in Texas, if someone's coming in from New York or they're coming in from Louisiana, they're being put on a 14-day home quarantine, not quite to the extent that David is over in Hong Kong, but being told to quarantine themselves coming in from the hotspots in the US. And of course, if people are coming from other countries, that's automatic, but even some areas in the States, we're seeing that. So it's day to day. What I'm saying today could be completely different tomorrow, but right now, sluggish, but still moving forward in the aircraft market here. The FAA's made a lot of quick changes, which is unusual for the FAA with the window for closings. First, they were quarantining all paperwork for 72 hours. I heard yesterday that they lifted that, but they're actually being forced to move more toward a digital format, which I think is better for all of us. So I'm loving all the innovation that I'm beginning to see, people doing things differently and challenging the status quo.
And one of the reasons we were keen to talk to you is you're always so optimistic. So we've got a nice question from Sharon McKenna. Will corporate America take to corporate jets in lieu of commercial airlines for a short term or an extended period?
I was going to bring this up on the call today, Al, because I think this is a challenge for every single person on this call. And it's our opportunity to talk about the benefits of private aviation, that people are not flying or subjecting their key family members or their key personnel to public transportation. So I think as an industry, we need to come out of this saying, hey, this is one of the benefits of private aviation, is that you're not exposed to all of the things that you're exposed to in public transportation. And I think that's one of the things that we need to be talking about as an industry. How do we land on our feet coming out of what is sure to be an unprecedented, difficult time in our industry and in the world?
Sharon's asking, will smaller jets suffer and long-range jets flourish? We certainly saw this in the global financial crisis.
That's a good question, because this is a really different atmosphere this time. I think we're going to see some of the light jets, even maybe some of the twin pistons, be picked up because they can be bought fairly inexpensively. They can be operated fairly inexpensively. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a shrinking of the globalization. So, long-range jets are very popular for going to different countries. And I don't know that we're going to see a big jump in international travel. Certainly the companies that have that will be traveling privately as much as they can. But I don't think it's going to hurt the smaller market like it did in the financial crunch a decade ago.
And finally, at a time when people are dying, it seems harsh to look at stock markets, but we're seeing a lot of your customers track the US stock markets closely. Do you think this is as big a problem for new deals?
I think this week is going to tell. You mentioned earlier that we passed a big $2.2 trillion bailout. I don't think anyone knows what's actually in that and how it's going to shake down. There's a lot of help in there for people who make less than $100,000 a year. Everyone will get a check. There are a lot of loans available for small businesses, which most of us on this call likely work for. But we don't have access to any of those funds yet. There's a lot of indication that the Small Business Administration will be backing loans, that there will be some payroll protections there for small businesses. But, there's still a ton of confusion about that. The bankers that I've been talking to haven't gotten the information about those loans yet. And of course, they'll all come from the banks in the United States and then be backed by the SBA. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Rent's due today for a lot of people. It's a payroll day. A lot of people have filed for unemployment here, just as they have in the rest of the world. So we're going to see some shakeout here. in the next 2 weeks. I don't think we're done with the up and down in the stock market in the US yet, unfortunately.
Okay, and finally, can you give us a positive note to end on?
Gosh,
No.
I've tried to be positive the whole time, Al. But you know what I want to say really is thanking you and Louisa for your leadership in this industry, because organizing this has done two things that I think are critical. It's allowed an exchange of information and thought leadership, of which I'm just honored to be asked to participate, and have seen so many of my friends comment in the chat. And the other thing that it does is give us connection in a time of isolation. And that's even a more basic human need. So thank you so much for doing this, for allowing me to connect virtually with a lot of people in the industry today, allowing all of us to do that. Al, I think the important thing that we have to remember is that we're all people, and we all need grace during this time. And you've extended a big dose of that today. Thanks.
Thanks so much. We're largely doing this because my kids were bored of me, but thank you. Thanks so much, Renee. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you. And now we're delighted we're about to get someone who is an expert on the government bailout, someone who in the US, someone who can take us through it. The CARE deal is actually quite exciting in theory if you're a Part 135 operator. So I'm delighted to hand over now to Tim Obitz, president of the National Air Transport Association. Tim, how are you feeling at the moment?
Physically, I feel great. Excited that during the lockdown, the governor of Virginia allowed golf courses to stay open. So that's the only good news about it. The bad news is that the lockdown is to June 10th, which is a long time from now. So I have 5 children. So please pray for my wife. She's homeschooling 5 kids now.
And just think how good they're all going to be at golf at the end of this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's the only form of exercise is golfing.
Tim, your members are a broad mix of operators and FBOs and people across the industry. What are they saying to you at the moment?
Yeah, so it depends upon if you're an FBO, a Part 135 operator, or an MRO. About on the 17th of March, flying stopped. And the only flights that were happening that were on-demand air charter, other than medical missions and cargo, were people trying to get loved ones home places. And the fear of flying commercial was just rampant. And so there was an uptick there from the 1st through the 17th of March in people using on-demand air charter. Since then, the normal on-demand charter has almost ceased to exist. And the flights that are happening are basically medical missions or medical transport and cargo to the 3,500 general aviation airports out there, and also to the 450 or so Part 139 airports. Sales of fuel have dropped probably between 80 and 90%. And in many general aviation airports out there, the only sales they're having are medical transport and police. And that's it. So mainly helicopters, which don't take a whole lot of fuel. So it's sort of glim and glum. And we've been trying to decipher through the CARE Act to see what we can do in the asks that we had in there, to see what we can do to help. And we continue to work toward a COVID-4. So the CARE Act was called COVID-3. And now we're looking at COVID-4 to see how we can fill the gaps.
Are you seeing a lot of interest from lawmakers in supporting business aviation?
Well, I think after the CARE Act came out, I said I was disappointed in what was provided to us. It seemed like they cared about the 450 Part 139 airports as well as the airlines, and could care less about the 1.2 million jobs and $247 billion of output that business aviation provides to America. And we worked hard. I know MBAA also worked hard. I talked with Ed Bolin and others, and we jointly worked to try to get some things in there. And we were able to get items in there for maintenance, so Part 145, and also for Part 135, trying to treat them the same way as the airlines. The whole issue is, is that tenable for them to accept the relief?
We're getting a lot of questions about the FET exemption bill.
Sure.
Do you want to explain it very briefly to people?
Yeah. So once again, NBAA and NET, we worked very hard on the FET exemption bill. It was a partial victory. There's two parts to it. The ticket tax for Part 135 of 7.5% is no longer collected. And then the second part has to do with the use of kerosene, i.e. Jet A. And that only was extended to Part 135. It did not extend on to Part 91. And so we're working with Treasury on the logistic nightmare now of how do we account for that? Do the Part 135 operators apply for a rebate through a form? How does this all work? And we're working hard to get guidance from Treasury on the aviation fuel tax exemption.
And do you think it's going to make a big difference to anyone?
Honestly, it was something. It was like they threw us a little bone there. We're talking about 24 cents a gallon. Will that make that big of a difference through December 31st of 2020 to help NET members? Everything helps, I guess, but it wasn't the real relief that we were looking for. But it was something.
Another question that's come up is someone's raised the point that, are we learning a new way of life? Is video conferencing and new technology going to stop people from traveling?
I certainly hope not. The idea of networking and talking together in large groups of people at events like yours and at the NBAA events, and it's a phenomenal way to do business and to learn from each other and talk. And that being able to read an audience as well when you're talking, you can't do this. All I do is I get to see you, and that's it.
What more do you want?
Well, not much actually, but thanks.
And when do you think this pandemic will be considered to be over?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be in this line of business. Obviously, I'd be betting on baseball games. The way I look at it is that the stay-at-home orders. It's amazing to see the difference in political party affiliation as to the extremity of stay-at-home orders, and we're in an election year. So it makes it all the more difficult. So for this, the way I'm looking at it is I want to say that mid-June, there's going to be a burst of business aviation out there. I don't think the airlines are going to recover for a while, but people are going to be cooped up with their 5 kids at home like me and want to get out of the house. And so I think there's going to be a burst of it, and we need to be prepared for that. And the way we're getting prepared for that is obviously in advising the members of the payroll relief through the small business loans that Renee talked about. Guidance is supposed to happen on Friday to the banks. So hopefully people are already talking with their local banks about the relief. So that's for companies that have less than 500 employees can do that. And that's can be used toward payroll as long with lease obligations and utility obligations for an 8-week period. And as long as they keep 75% of their employees around, that loan is forgiven. So if you look at it this way, you can get free payroll through June, about 2.5 So what is that? 85% of your payroll, the government can pay for through June if you keep 75% of your employees around, and that's a good deal. The other provisions in there that everybody's filing for like crazy is there's a $25 billion tranche out there for Part 135 operators to help with payroll. And there's applications that are due Friday by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, the application isn't even out for that, and we're at Wednesday. So people are trying to get the information together, and part of it is that they have to give something in return. And the question is, what can a privately held company give in return for it? They can't really give equity. They don't have a security that's traded. So they have to come up with a creative financial instrument, a loan obligation or something to make it happen.
Can you just put forward any piece of paper saying we'll offer a debenture?
Yeah, who knows? You got to get creative, and it's in the discretion of the Secretary of Treasury as to what they're going to do. So we've been telling members, have a great story about this, and we've got a call with membership today at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about this. And I saw in the questions as well, there's questions about Part 135 and medical certificates and currency training. Just to let you know, NETA has some NET exemptions that were issued by the FAA for both international and domestic medical certificates that basically put everything on hold. So if your medical certificate's running out, you can keep flying and keep acting. Likewise with the currency and training, the same thing has happened. And so if you want to find those exemptions, they're obviously on the FAA website, but we also have them at www.neta.aero on our COVID page that we update daily.
That's brilliant. Thanks. Thanks so much, Tim. That's great. And we'll let you go on with your call and apply for lots of money.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
No, thanks.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So just to remind everyone, this will be recorded, and you can also go back and see the question. Sorry, Tim, I'm about to get rid of you.
Thanks.
I'll just keep you up there because you look better than me. And now I'm just trying to get. We've talked about money, so let's get a banker on screen. I'm now going to try and invite Mike Francis from First Republic Bank on. And Mike's not going to answer questions on small business loans, but is going to take us through whether you can still get finance for an aircraft finance transaction now. Mike, how are you? Nice shirt.
Thank you. I thought I'd dress up today because I think we're in work from home, and having done this for years in a couple different lives, I've noticed it makes a big difference if you actually dress up for work versus just what you wear around the house. So not sure if others have experienced the same thing, but thanks for organizing this. I'm echoing, I think, everybody else, whether in the chat group or those who have been asked to speak. This is a business of relationships, and it's been really challenging since we all can't travel and see each other to get together and share thoughts and the like. So thank you again.
No, it's great, and thanks for coming. We now actually have 347 people watching at the moment, which is astonishing. It tells you that nothing is happening in business aviation at the moment. What are you hearing from your owners?
Well, it's echoing, it's certainly what Renee mentioned earlier. It's a kind of across the board. In some ways, it depends on what industries the people are involved in. So we've seen folks, buying airplanes, so again, put them on pause. But we're having conversations with people who are still in the market to buy a plane. But we also see, since we're a lender, I see it kind of two different ways. There's people who are buying planes, but there's also, it's been a great market because rates have been so low to refinance, and we've seen many refinance opportunities as well. But the challenge is kind of twofold. The first one being, since the trading market is on hold largely, what are airplanes worth right now? I don't know. I know they're not going to be worth any more than they were, 4 weeks ago. I think most of us believe there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown, so values may drop a little bit or a lot. We're not really sure, but we're kind of putting some caution to the wind, knowing what we don't know at the moment. That if we're doing a future value projection or trying to figure out what a plane's worth right now, it's challenging. And in some instances, when we're talking with prospects, we're saying, why don't we just keep talking, but let's check in a month, in a few weeks or a month or so, once we have some more clarity here, because also, we've got to be able to do some due diligence on your business. And if you're telling us you're not sure how long this is going to last for, or what the outlook looks like for your business, it's hard for us to be able to do the credit underwriting we need to do in order to understand how you're going to be able to weather the storm in the short, medium, and long term.
Are you getting anyone coming to you going, my aircraft's an unencumbered asset, I need cash?
Yeah, we've had a lot of opportunities, and actually, I've been reaching out to folks who I can see have bought airplanes recently for cash to see if they want to redeploy that capital, because you never know when you're going to need it. But again, the present challenges, or what I mentioned earlier, is what's your plane worth? If you're looking for a 90% loan to value with a really aggressive amortization, it's probably not the market to be doing that right now.
So, Mike, every bank tells me they're always open, even during 2010 when a lot was shut, would tell me that we're still very open. With people homeworking, can you actually get a credit committee to decide on something?
Yeah, I haven't been. I can't speak for the entire industry, but I mean, we certainly have been able to, and I've seen a lot of my peers still out in the industry. With that said, if you are advising a customer on buying an airplane and or financing, if you have a term sheet that was issued in the past week or two, or even if you have a commitment, it would behoove you to keep checking in with your lender, because the situation is fluid. We're having regular conversations with our loan committee on what our portfolio looks like and any current commitments that we have. And you need to do that to be prudent, because the situation changes pretty quickly. I've heard of and I don't know who they are, but I've heard of some folks experiencing some difficulties with lenders who at the last minute either changed the terms or pulled out for whatever reason. And again, it's just the situation's so fluid, it's worth just keeping, in close conversation with whoever your lenders are.
And a question from Sharon again, McKenna. Will 2020 be a year of restructuring existing deals or swapping out older planes early for heavily discounted new aircraft?
Probably yes. If you're a borrower, hypothetically, if you're a family in the hotel business and you own an airplane, you're probably going to have a pretty hard time satisfying your debt payments. And I don't want that airplane back. I don't want you to default on the loan. So yeah, there's going to be there are conversations across the entire banking industry about ways to work with customers, to reduce the burden prudently to help folks, weather the storm.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks so much to Mike. Would anyone like to step up and, sorry, Mike, I'll let you get. Would anyone like to, if you put a comment in the chat room, would anyone like to step up and say anything or make any comments? We're trying to make this as interactive as possible. Our plan is not to do one of these every week, but run them in sort of series of 3 or 4. And next week, we're going to look at aircraft values and transactions. What can we learn from the last downturn, and what else can we see? So if anyone would like to come up now, if not, you might just pick people at random if we can. Mike Walsh has just put something up from Hong Kong. Mike's never shy. Let's see if Mike would like to come online now and give his views from Hong Kong. And then it's a nice symmetry. We'll have gone all the way around the world. Mike, can you hear me? Are you dressed? Okay, I think the fact that he's not jumping on board is a sign that maybe he is not dressed at the moment. Colin Brickman from Camo 4 Jets has been telling us all that everything is great and that he's closing deals. So, Colin, I'm going to try and invite you on screen now to give your cheery view of the market. And while we're doing that, there's a new poll up there, which was a question from the audience. When do you think the pandemic could be considered to be over? When do you think business will start to improve? And Colin has connected and is accepting, so hopefully we will have him in a second. And I also think it'd be nice to have a lawyer. So Aoife O'Sullivan, if you would like to come on, I've just in your role as the British Business and General Aviation Association. You have also been invited. And John Farish has argued, now who do we have? Colin Brickman on screen. Colin from Camo 4 Jets. Colin, you're saying it's still possible to inspect aircraft and perform PPIs?
Absolutely, Al. Good afternoon, everybody. Really excellent discussion. Thanks very much. Super idea, this. I like it. It is possible.
And then afterwards we'll have Ethan. Colin, are you talking? I've lost you.
Possible to inspect airplanes. The main thing is...
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now, Alistair? Okay, I'll be really brief. I can see Aoife's coming. It's having people in the right place at the right time. Luckily, we have a global network, so we can manage to do inspections. It's very, very difficult indeed. Generally, the airplanes are prepared for us. The mechanics and the guys will walk away. We can go in, do what we need to do, and we walk away and the mechanics go back to the airplane. So it's a little bit of a dance. It's a little bit structured. It's very, very organized, but having the people in country is the key at the moment to all deals. Repossessions, unfortunately, and very nervous investors are growing with their interest in technical condition every day.
And are you already looking at repossessions?
Basically, all over the world, different airplanes, different places, different situations. But yeah, unfortunately, there are some that where the deals didn't work out, or the payments didn't work out, and the financiers are asking for support. So yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, but such is life, Alistair, and we turn the page and move on.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Colin, and thanks for coming up.
No problem.
Your views. Great to see you.
Now.
Okay, and hopefully now Aoife O'Sullivan from the founder of the L Group should be up any second now. Aoife needs no introduction, but she's going to get a long one because I haven't got her showing yet. Aoife is also heavily involved in the British Business and General Aviation Association, which after Brexit is arch rivals with the EBAA. And I've lost Aoife. I'm trying again, sorry. It was all going so well. And Aoife's accepting now. Aoife's having connection issues. So next week, we are going to look at aircraft valuations. But let's quickly see if Richard Berkemeyer, very well known to everyone for the American Society of Appraisals of America, the ASA, and see if he's available. Dog Golan, thanks very much for your comments about our wallpaper. Every room in our house is like this. I'm trying to get Richard on now, but I think we're having connection issues with lots of people. Both Aoife and Richard seem to be having connection. Just to remind you, this is available afterwards. The polls, since we've been listening, 3 more people have voted to be very optimistic. 92% are fairly pessimistic. And most people think the pandemic will be over within 6 months. It's great to have the 17 people who have voted for 12 months plus. If that's true, I think we're all going to be very sick of Skype meetings. Okay, I'm going to try one last time, and I'm not getting. I don't seem to be getting Richard and Aoife able to connect, so we'll come to them next week. Finally, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us. It's a crazy time for everyone in the industry. It's amazing that more than 350 people have joined today. If there's anything we can do for any of you, please let us know. Oh, I have someone. Richard Berkemeyer from the American Society of Appraisals of America.
Al, I apologize for not shaving today. I'm happy to see that Virginia thinks that golf is an essential business model and the like. As appraisers, I think we're all getting a fair chatted with many of the appraisers out there, and we're certainly getting a lot of calls about what we think is happening numbers-wise and where things are going. I suspect there'll be a slurry of work maybe in about 90 days out, either on the inspection side. A lot of the feeder businesses, such as the engine manufacturers, are having a fair amount of difficulty also. Some of the rebuild shops. I spent last week in Miami looking at a bunch of engines and the like, then came back into Rhode Island, met up with the National Guard, who quarantined me for the next 14 days. So anyways, I think maybe the next time you might have a group of appraisers and we can have a chat about what we're up to and the like. But yeah, we're getting a lot of phone calls, not so much in the way of actual appraisals, but kind of picking our brains.
Richard, can you hear me? Sorry,
yes.
I lost sound.
Yes.
Can you give us an update on values? Is it too early to say aircraft values have fallen?
No, I certainly think they've fallen. I'm getting a lot of feedback out. But I think over the next 90 days, you'll see a continuous drop, a lot of stuff sitting about.
Thanks so much, Richard. We're going to go to Aoife now. Oh, I think I've lost her again. Aoife, I've lost you again. Okay, we're getting Aoife O'Sullivan will be on the next one as we've just gone 1 hour. Thank you so much to everyone for giving up the time to watch this. If there's anything we can do to help anyone, please let us know. Apologies for muting at the end. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all face to face. And if not, next week at the same time, we'll be doing aircraft values and aircraft sales. Thanks very much. Stay safe and as Churchill said, keep buggering on. Thank you.